Hi, I'm Jennifer Potter, Executive Director of Be Well Texas. Too many people are struggling alone these days, and alcohol and drug deaths are increasing. We started Be Well Texas to offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere, even at home. We provide compassionate, caring support virtually or in person. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment if you don't have insurance. Really. Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here.
I want to talk about something that's been really exciting around here, and that is our partnership with our friends at Ford. Ford Motor Company and your North Texas Ford, or your Texas Ford dealers have announced an expanded sponsorship of the UIL State Championships, solidifying Ford as the official automotive sponsor of the UIL. As part of the new commitment, Ford will now support all UIL extracurricular activities, including athletic, academic, and music state championship competitions. In addition to the sponsorship, Ford is celebrating the 20th anniversary of the prestigious Built Ford Tough Player of the Week Award and Player of the Year Award. This campaign has become one of the most celebrated in Texas high school sports, recognizing standout athletes, student athletes, for their on-field performance, leadership, and commitment to excellence. Ford will honor some of the most decorated players who have received the award over the years, with a special focus being on their achievements both in high school and beyond. Guys like Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, all former Built Ford Tough Players of the Year, and we're partnering with them to amplify that. Dave Campbell's Texas Football, we're going to be amplifying the celebration through our partnership through all of our different platforms, so Texan Live, as well as here on this program and over the course of our social media as well, and TexasFootball.com. We're really, really excited to be partnering with Ford to help celebrate all of the things in Texas high school sports across the landscape. So more to come on that. There's more information on TexasFootball.com, but we're so thrilled to announce that partnership in Texas and the Texas Ford Dealers' expanded partnership as the official automotive sponsor of partner of the UIL State Championships. We certainly are very, very excited about the future there.
Hello and welcome into a special edition of the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. I am your host, Carter Yates, and that is senior college writer Mike Craven. But we got a special guest today. It is Jared Kalmus at Alamo Audible. He is a publisher and producer there. We're doing a full UTSA breakdown and preview of the 2025 season. Jared, what's the overall vibe check right now in San Antonio? How does everyone feel going into August?
I think UTSA did enough in the back half of the 2024 season to get the fans back on board, right? There were some really difficult losses last year, and it was the first time I think you've seen the fan base get a little bit nervous with where things were going under Jeff Traylor. I mean, it had been completely smooth sailing, all previous, 4 seasons that Jeff was at the helm. So there was some cause for concern that Tulsa game was really ugly. Obviously, getting it handed to you by Texas State was not a pleasant experience for Roadrunner fans. Throw a little bone to the Texas State listeners there, but Owen McCown really grew into the role throughout the span of the season. Most of the offense is back. Defense is a huge question mark just across the board, but I think you've got to feel pretty good about that offense, the continuity in the coaching staff, and just like the lack of certainty for the rest of the conference. Right, that should be a pretty good year for UTSA.
When you look back on last year, what do you attribute the step back to? Is it as simple as Frank Harris, Rashad Wisdom, some of those leaders weren't there? Do you prescribe it as something else? Kind of, how do you look back on that season and kind of diagnose it?
There's no simple answers in football, right? It's a really complex game. But I think the leadership aspect was really big. I think a lot of people outside the program would be quick to just point at there's no Frank Harris and it's a natural slide back. But I think the lack of leadership on the defensive side was more evident to me. There were so many just dumb, careless penalties from that defense, late hits, hits out of bounds, offsides, hitting the quarterback well after the pass is away. And that stuff didn't really get ironed out throughout most of the season. And I feel like in the 2023 and previous seasons, some of the more senior guys on the team would kind of pull aside some dudes like, hey, you got to cut that out, right? or they would get benched, right? And you put another guy in. So maybe depth was also part of it. But to me, it was just like the maturity, the leadership, and just like kind of careless play, I guess.
Jared, did you see the last 6 games a change in the maturity level and like the senseless penalties? Did those stop, do you think?
I would say they stopped, but they became more manageable, I would say. I think like the play-by-play performance elevated. So even though some of those dumb mistakes were still happening, they were a little bit more tolerable because you were getting more chunk yardage on offense. You were generating more turnovers on defense. The pass rush had improved. So there was like a little bit more margin for error, I guess I would say. And then on the offensive side of the ball, you just see things like start to click into place. They started using the tight ends in the passing game a lot more, and that felt like a huge development for the offense. It really stretched the field vertically, gave Owen some additional looks that weren't really there at the beginning of the year. So I think some of it was that, and just getting guys healthy as well.
And I do find it interesting that like UTSA had probably its 2 worst losses of the trailer era, and maybe its best win of the trailer, at least statistic. I mean, beating a ranked team in Memphis. How comfortable are you in that? That was just a blip on the radar. UTSA is going to get back to competing for conference championships, or is it a sign that like maybe without some of those star players that UTSA had, that they're just kind of like everybody else now?
I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, to be honest with you. I think my concerns with this roster, with this team, are a lot different than my concerns from last year, right? Just that defense. I have no clue what they're going to look like. I can throw names at you guys, but there is really no telling who's going to be out there and how they're going to perform. So, as far as like, I guess recruiting, athleticism, I don't know if you've seen that continued climb, right? As far as like the level of athlete they're getting into, I think they've maybe plateaued a little bit, but I think they're still getting the level of athlete that will allow them to compete in the American. And then, I think it's just like, how are they developing, retaining those guys? And they've been able to retain pretty well. And that is a huge bonus when you look across the rest of the group of 5, group of 6 landscape. Not many programs out there are able to bring back, 800-yard rushers that are running for 5 yards a clip, and, guys that can generate a lot of tackles for loss and stuff like that. So I think that continuity is like a big factor in UTSA staying competitive, but they haven't gotten to a title game in the American yet. So there's still like another level of progression for the program that they just haven't got to yet.
Can I piggyback off that for a second? Do you think we talk about at the P4 level that like the rosters from 2017, 2018, 2019 just cannot be duplicated anymore because of the NIL and the transfer portal and the revenue share? Do you think UTSA can ever build a 2021, 2022 roster again at the G5 level? Or is that just impossible and everybody's playing the same game? And so like, while their roster has maybe taken a step back, so has like Tulane can't keep their players, right? Like, so I just wonder if we have to recalibrate what we think of as a good roster.
That's a great question. I was talking about this a little bit with Matthew from at the Roost last night, actually. And I think UTSA could still put together a really, really strong championship caliber team with a lot of guys that'll take a hometown discount, right? Because when you look back at some of those teams, you had some guys that were, local, like Rashad Wisdom, that were there for the long haul. Like you guys know, Frank Harris turned down some pretty big NIL opportunities to stay at UTSA. So I think having, that local talent base to pull from, where guys might be willing to stay and turn down, more money elsewhere is certainly something that'll help. But I think there's certain positions that at the G6 level and probably the low end of the P4, you just can't hide a guy that's 6'7" and can rush the passer anymore, right? And you don't have to sit out a year. I think it's more of the lack of a sit out year for a transfer than the NIL aspect, right? Because if you can go and play immediately, you don't have to sit out. I mean, it's just really, really tempting. And I think there's a lot of teams now, they start from the portal and then they work out from there, as opposed to vice versa, where I think it's more of like filling in the gaps when the portal first opened up. But I think those positions where athleticism, size is really key. It's going to be really, really hard for anyone who's not Alabama, Texas A&M to hold on to those truly elite players.
Well, when you talk about continuity with UTSA, the biggest offseason win was Owen McCown coming back. How much confidence does he give you at the quarterback spot, even with a lot of question marks on this roster? It feels like McCown's one of the top returners, if not the top returner in the American.
Yeah, he's got to be. I mean, the only other returning quarterback of note is Horvath at Navy, but he pretty much plays a different position than Owen. Throws the ball 10 times a game at most if they're losing. So yeah, if Owen was not coming back to this team, I would not be talking about them even having a hint of potentially playing for a championship. I think he's a really good player. I think he's kind of flying under the radar a little bit nationally as well. With him being an NFL pedigree, like you would think there'd be a little more hype, but he's got some honorable mention all conference kind of nods and stuff like that. But I think he's a tremendous player. I think that offense is going to be humming this year. He's got a lot of talent around him. They just bring back a ton of snaps across the board. And you just saw that the maturation, right? If you go back and watch that Texas State game, you can kind of sense a little bit of panic in Owen, especially when they're throwing those exotic blitzes at him. Too quick to throw the ball away, not like sometimes the protection was there and he just was feeling ghost a little bit. So you saw that improvement throughout the year for him. And, I think they've kind of found what's going to work for this offense and they'll be able to run it back pretty well.
JT Clark, no longer playing football, but Devin McEwen's back. Willie McCoy, if he's healthy, is back. David Amador, who I think is going to have a huge season, who was really, really good at the end of last year when he was healthy. The tight ends are really good, obviously. Is there kind of a name, a guy who's off the radar or not one of those returning production guys that fans you think need to know in terms of just targets for Owen?
Yeah, they grabbed a transfer to Houston Christian, actually, and he torched UTSA and the FCS matchup for the Roadrunners in the Alamo Dome. And
I love how much that happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, that guy killed me. I'm going to go get that
right.
guy.
It's almost like a contract year in baseball, but you're playing for an NIL payday. So his name is, AJ Wilson. He was making all kinds of sideline catches, one-handed grabs. And he had a nice career at HCU. So I think he's going to pop into the rotation right away at wide receiver. I wouldn't be surprised to see him actually get a starting spot with JT Clark for sure not coming back anymore. But coming from a not super prolific, at least from a win-loss record, FCS school hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but I think he's a guy that the staff has big plans for.
So I like the wide receiver room a lot for UTSA. I think some of the question marks for me are in the running back room in that run game. Jared, have you seen anyone during spring ball or into the summer kind of take over that bell cow or give themselves a chance to be the bell cow back, or is this going to be a running back by committee type deal?
Well, I think Robert Henry is going to be the go-to guy. I mean, I think he'll get a solid 65, 70% of the snaps. Him getting that JUCO waiver, the Diego Pavia rule was huge for the Roadrunners. I think he was the only guy that they probably wanted back that actually stayed at UTSA with an extra year. So if he's healthy, he's going to be huge. And I think he'll be, the feature back for sure. A lot of the guys weren't there for the spring, right? They got John Emery from LSU. He was not there for the spring. And I don't think Amarian Peterson was there either, right? So you got 2 5-star talents there that have kind of fallen into your lap over the summer. And, Jeff Traylor has a habit of doing that. Just find some former 5-star guys just hanging out in the portal and get them on the roster. But Bryson Donnell, former Texas Tech player, is there as well. He had some pretty good showings last year. And then, Will Henderson had a couple awesome touchdown runs this past year. So, he's kind of a wild card. I don't think he'll be a consistent, pound the rock back because he's so small, but there's just so much talent in that room. You got to think someone's going to be healthy. Someone's going to find their spark. If the run blocking is there, which is probably a bigger question for me, then I think they'll be able to move the ball to the ground. And, Owen in that passing game is going to open up the tackle box for the running backs to have some space to operate.
Speaking of the run blocking, kind of what are the concerns on the front line and the trenches?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they have one offensive tackle, true offensive tackle on this team. That's the Rutgers transfer, Kamar Missouri. Expecting big things from him. I think he's also a guy that's a little bit underrated. They have Jalen Garth coming back. He's one of those 6-year, 7-year Frank Harris types. That's just is this guy ever going to leave UTSA? But he
played with Rashawn Johnson at PNG.
Yeah.
That's how long ago he was. Yeah.
And Rashawn Johnson's a 3rd-year NFL guy.
Right.
What? That's insane. So that's the biggest concern for me is just, when you face a team that can bring pressure off both edges, are they going to be able to hold up, long enough? Typically, they haven't had great blocking from the running backs historically. We'll see how that looks this year. So that's my biggest concern. I think in the middle, they're going to be pretty strong. In fact, they're probably a pretty solid 2 deep there. Luke Lopez was injured last year, and he had a starting spot, I think, his sophomore season. Corey Gonet played hurt last year, and he was still pretty strong. So, you've got a really good group there. Ben Rios, pretty strong for UTSA as well. So, pretty solid grouping in the middle. It's just that offensive tackle position opposite of Missouri. I don't know. We'll see how that turns out.
There's no statistic I can point to with this, but it felt like last year, UTSA, their injury list, like they got back from a war, basically, just how bad the injury luck was. Certainly that can't happen again, right? You got to feel like the injury luck.
I don't know, Carter.
Like, how much did that impact last year? And are you more hopeful for this year just based on that injury luck?
So it's been a big problem for UTSA for a long time. And I think the winning has masked a lot of that. Like their injury report has been pretty terrible the past couple of years. But, I'm a little bit optimistic because this is the first year that you've heard Traylor actually point to some root causes of like maybe guys are playing at a weight heavier than their body can support. Maybe they're, bulking guys up too quickly, too early and trying to slim some of those guys down in the offseason. They're doing a lot more conditioning work throughout the spring and the summer. So we'll see. I mean, I would love to see like some of these 340-pound linemen get down to 320, 325, right? So I don't know. It sounds like they're taking it seriously now, and they're not just like viewing it as bad luck, because there has got to be some kind of systematic issue, especially along both lines, that you keep seeing these knee injuries, these ligament injuries. So, we'll see how that turns out, but they're taking it seriously, at least.
That's the smartest answer I've ever heard to the dumbest question I've ever asked. So thank you, Jared.
Thanks. Yeah, ChatGPT is pretty good at sports medicine.
I think they also had like a back room guy or two in the training staff leave like right before the season last year. They kind of like messed some stuff up. I know that was kind of a cause for concern, but it's like the one score games. You like imagine it's going to turn, but it doesn't mean it's going to right away. And so like you just hope you stay healthier. I do think they're deep along the offensive line, like you said, in the interior specifically. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about the defense, because it does feel like that's the big question mark. Like UTSA is going to
try my best.
UTSA is going to score points, right? Like that they are going to be one of the top offenses in the American. How good they can be long term as a football team comes down to if they can figure it out defensively. It was the worst defense of the Jeff Traylor era. Not very good last year. Jared pointed out all the penalties. UTSA was one of only two teams with over 1,000 penalty yards against them, and the other one played 2 extra games.
It's crazy, man.
Like they were not good. One of the things that I found interesting when I sat down with Traylor was he basically was like, because of the portal, I got too nice. Like I was worried about running guys off, and I stopped being. I forget the exact quote. I put it in the magazine. But like they were some hungry ass dogs, I think is what he said when he first got there, and they got too nice to people, and he's back to just coaching, and maybe that will help, because it just seemed like it was dumb mistakes and it was a lack of toughness, and that's just not something we had seen from UTSA previously. So hopefully they get that corrected for their sake. We'll start up front. John Jones, Vic Shaw feel like names that we know. Is everything else just kind of we'll see come fall camp type of deal?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I think it's the one position where you have a little bit of trust in the staff, just because, I mean, Mike, you've been following UTSA since the inception of the program. Have they ever had a bad defensive line?
They can figure out a pass rusher. They're going to have somebody get 10 sacks.
Right. They have always figured out a way to, find a solid rotation on the defensive line. So I think they'll be fine. I don't know if the ceiling's as high as it's been in some past years. They could get there if Johnny Bowens is healthy. He's a Converse Judson product, went to Oregon for a while, and, he really, really flashed when he first got to UTSA, and then he had an ACL tear, I believe it was. So we'll see if he's ready for the start of the season, if he's ready for conference play. But he's going to elevate this program big time if he's on the field. I also really like the pickup they had at the nose tackle, Cameron Blaylock. He's a guy who started his career at Memphis and then went to, is it either Tennessee Tech or Tennessee State? I get them mixed up.
I think it's Tennessee Tech.
Schools. Yeah. I love his film. I mean, he just looks just like some of these past defensive tackles that have come through UTSA and gone onto the league, right? I think of like a Brandon Brown type, right? A Kevin Strong. He has that same build, that same aggression, flying to the football, getting up a block. So I think he's going to be a big-time player. And there are some younger guys that had pretty good showings as freshmen last year. Chad Otutu is a guy that I know the staff's really high on. He's super athletic. Zachariah Robinson had some big plays last year. So, they've got a lot of depth up there. It's just like, can any of these guys be a breakout all-conference type of player, right? I think is kind of the question that remains to be answered. But I think they'll be just fine.
I'm going to butcher his name, but they really like the Nana Anyanwu.
Right.
They think if he's healthy, he can be like the edge rusher off the edge there for them. That can replace Jamori Robinson.
Yeah, Kyan Roberts-Day, the Baylor transfer, I think also has a chance to play that role as well. So, between them, Vic Shaw, Cameron Cooper, you just expect one of those guys to step into that role that UTSA has been able to fill so successfully for many years now.
Jared, you mentioned before that UTSA might lead the nation, and holy shit, that guy's there now.
Yeah.
And I think Shad Banks Jr. at middle linebacker, projected to start on the magazine for us.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of those guys, a former North Shore wide receiver with David Almador, I'm pretty sure, on that same team. Now he's at linebacker. What are your expectations for him and the linebacking crew as a whole?
Well, I think Shad Banks is probably the most important player in this defense. If he mostly lives up to the hype and the expectations, this defense could be okay. The interior linebacker position could be a plus. If he's a disappointment, or if he's just average, if he's just mediocre, they're going to have a really hard time stopping the run. So definitely hoping to see big things from him. I think Brandon Tucker, the pickup from East Texas A&M, is really intriguing as well. He had a really, really nice career up there, All-American at the FCS level. But man, it's a lot of questions,
Mm-hmm.
You get Owen Peavy back at outside linebacker. He should really continue to grow as we've seen him do so far. And I think they're sending him to media day. So good indication of what they're expecting from him. I expect him to be one of those 210 jersey numbers that are so coveted, the triangle of toughness. But I don't know. It's a lot of question marks. And I'm just throwing names out at this point, man. I have no clue what to expect.
You should try to name all the 210 jerseys. Have you ever done that before? Like, let me try to
historically.
Yeah, historically.
I would definitely miss some because there's like some linemen that have played in that.
Oh, I'm sorry, not historically, like all the ones that have ever been a 210 jersey, but like before they're announced. Like, have you tried to guess which guys from this year's team will be a 210 jersey number?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of my favorite things to do every offseason. Like, we do it on the podcast pretty often, like maybe a Patreon exclusive. And that's a lot of fun because you try to like read between the lines of like, because the team votes on it. It's like, what does the team think of this guy, right? So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a fun little gimmick. But to Mike's point about them probably being too nice on the guys, a lot of the guys in the 210 numbers last year were the ones getting all the dumb penalties.
Yeah.
So I'm really intrigued to see how that changes things going forward.
I feel like two of them are probably known. Like McCown will be one, and Owen Peewee will probably be one.
McEwen is a shoe-in.
Yeah. Then okay, so like we may have nailed the three right there.
Robert Henry is probably a lock.
Yeah, because they can do 210 on offense and 210 on defense, and so it ends up being six of them. So
Kendrick Blackshear as a 210 lock, you think?
No clue.
Yeah, I don't know.
I was just joking around.
He's one of those guys I have no idea what to expect from him this year. Didn't play much last year. Potential's there, obviously.
You mentioned Shad Banks being part of the David Amador North Shore. He was in the Hail Mary game from 2018. Like, he's Demetrius Davis North Shore. Like he goes. That's another name that's at UTSA still, right? Like Demetrius Davis, blast from the past. That's crazy. File that away. I'm gonna write the story on that. Like,
Spencer Harris was last year on the North Shore.
Yeah, we'll probably skip that part of the story.
Yeah.
I think Ty Leonard was Ty Leonard on one of those teams, or is he an Atascocita guy? I always get them mixed up.
Yeah, I don't want to be wrong. I think he was an Atascocita guy. But yeah, those two big time player. I mean, Shad's not the wide receiver that caught the Hail Mary, but he was the best wide receiver on that football team that year, and a heck of a kick returner. 245 pounds. He was returning kicks at TCU. I think it's going to be him and Brandon Tucker. Like, that would be my guess at the inside linebacker position with Pee-wee. What are your thoughts on the secondary? That one feels like maybe the biggest crapshoot of all.
Super iffy. Super iffy. There's enough here that you can kind of take a really optimistic view and see it meshing and them being okay. But, just historically, I don't feel like UTSA has recruited the same level of athlete in the secondary as they have at other positions on the field. Quarterback, they've gotten some studs, right? Some guys that are 6'1", 6'3", that have the speed to develop. I think there's some of those guys on this roster still, but the safety position, it's been tough. A lot of undersized guys, a lot of guys that don't have elite speed. And I still see a lot of that on this roster, right? Guys like Jamarius Lewis kind of came on late and, were okay. Ty Milton, kind of like a nickel corner, same deal. I know Caden Meyer did some nice things at Nevada. I think he was at before he transferred to UTSA. But I don't know if there's really anyone that I can point to in the secondary and say, I feel really, really good about this guy having 45 tackles 3 interceptions, and just being really solid and consistent. Just so many unknowns back there.
Is there a reason you think for the recruiting, not recruiting as many of those same type caliber athletes like Zay Frazier, or is it just like that's what happened this year?
Yeah, I don't know. I do think about that a lot. Some of it may have been the strategy of just getting portal guys that they're plugging and playing, right? They had the UIW transfer whose name escapes me, but he stepped in and just took a lot of snaps that maybe a younger guy could have gotten, and probably would have taken some lumps, but would have developed into a better player this year. So yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, it feels like, you talked about linebacker, and if Shad Banks can kind of be a player, they're going to be good. It does feel like if they figure out the 2 corner spots, they're going to have a chance. And then safety is just going to be what it is, I guess.
Yeah. Now, I do like guys like Davin Martin, but I think he still might be a year away from being like that level of corner. So hopefully he's early in his development and he kind of breaks out. I think RJ Lester, the Oklahoma State transfer, has got a lot of potential as well. He has that archetype of, Tariq Woolen that, can disrupt once the ball's in the air, even if it gets beat. So we'll see, but it's just hard to have confidence, right?
Have you heard anything about the corner Armani Rue from Kansas Highland Community College? We put him on TexasFootball.com on like an early impact guy. Right when signing day happened, it was like, here's who could play the earliest. So I don't know how much has changed on that front since early signing day. Probably a lot. Have you heard anything about this guy?
No, I think it's probably even more likely to be the starter. They had another guy that they got from JUCO, and he didn't even finish the spring. I think there was like a week left in the spring, and then he went in the portal and went to Michigan State. So he was looking really good. Anthony Panache, I think is how you pronounce his name. And he was expected to be a starter. And, it's pretty brutal, right? To use a scholarship spot and, pay a guy some NIL money and pay for a scholarship, and you get like 3 weeks of spring ball out of them. Doesn't even make it to like what would have been a spring game. But that's the world we live in now. So I think Rue's got a pretty clear path to, probably start week 1 against A&M. But, we've seen pretty often that UTSA will move off of a guy if, one of the younger guys is able to develop pretty quickly. So
I've never asked a special teams question in my life, but I'm going to start now.
I saw the pain on your face as you're about to ask that question, Craven. Like I literally saw how hard that was for you to ask.
Mike's been like anti-kickers as long as I've known them. Yeah.
I'm just not a big fan. Who's going to kick?
It's got to be Michael Petro. I don't know if there's anyone else on the roster. They did get this Jafar Murphy portal guy, but once you're having to dip into the portal in like May, it's slim pickings, right? It's like it is like past 2:30, and it's not even just who's left of the bar. It's like who's hanging around the outside the bar, right? It's kind of what UTSA had to deal with. My hope is there's some crazy good high school kid that got overlooked, and he's going to fall onto the roster in August. I don't know. It's I had a friend that's like, man, the kicking is terrible in this new EA college football game. I'm like, well, you're playing with UTSA that might have the lowest rated kicker in the country. I think that's a personnel problem. But who knows? I mean, we haven't seen Petro kick. He could be, an ace up the sleeve, but it was not a good situation that led to him being, forced into a starting role. They lost both guys ahead of him that, have been really solid for the Roadrunners. So
that's the hard part is like Chase Allen leaves because he doesn't have a starting job, and you wish him well. And that's awesome. He lands at Rice, good for you. But then it's like, hey, are you up? Like, would you like to come back? Like the spot is open now. Texas State also lost their kicker, post spring. Like it's just brutal. Like it is. I think in a lot of ways, the portal has helped G6 teams in a way that the coaches don't admit.
Yeah.
But there's obvious downsides. And that is, you just get cherry picked in April or May. Hopefully the one, if they go to one transfer portal, do you think that helps G6 programs more than it helps the P4?
Yeah, absolutely. Because guys can sign anytime, right? Especially if they're a graduate. So you can go and grab dudes whenever, but you have more stability on knowing where you need to fill those gaps. So yeah, I think that'd be huge. And, I think just for the sake of everyone's sanity, it's good. But I think for the G6 schools, it's massive because you have just less unknowns to deal with. Like you still have the chance that a guy gets his degree and he can jump in the portal as a graduate transfer. But you at least have a heads up that, hey, this guy's like 3 classes away and could leave at any point in time. And, it's funny to think back. I mean, I remember like before Tulane was good, they had like a Luke Gruza kicker 2 years in a row. And then like Idaho had like the punter of the year 2 or 3 years in a row pre-portal, like that is just never going to happen again.
I've said multiple times that if I was a Texas, an Ohio, I would never recruit a high school special teams player ever again in my life. I would let you figure it out as a freshman or sophomore somewhere else and go get the best kicker from the FCS or the G5 or in your own conference. I would never spend a scholarship on a high school kid ever again on special teams if I had the money to just go buy one.
And it doesn't take a lot either. It's the crazy thing.
Right. If I had $50 hanging around. I'm going to ask this question from a place of love. Why are UTSA fans the way that they are?
I have always said that UTSA's fan base, they are not college football fans historically. You know, most of them just grew up watching the NFL or just following high school football, or maybe didn't even pay that much attention to football. So I think a lot of UTSA fans lack a sense of awareness, right, about how this sport works and, you know, why things happen the way they happen and like what's realistic expectations and stuff like that. That's a great question, but that's always been my go-to answer.
Well, what is the way that they are for a guy who is not engrossed in UTSA Twitter like y'all are?
Hot and cold.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people think that you can have 2-3 good seasons and suddenly compete with like Texas. There's just like this crazy expectation. Like they've raised the budget for athletics like $30 million in 5 years or something like that. And then you still see people like the school's not supporting athletics. They're not raising enough money. The donors aren't giving money. It's just like, man, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, yeah, it'd be great if they were in the SEC for sure, but that's just not the way this world works. So I think a lot of it is just kind of naivety. And I think there's also the fan base has been spoiled, right? Like they have mostly seen pretty good success, especially newer fans that have come around from the trailer era. And they've seen like this really rapid progression of like increasing in stature, being on national TV more often, getting into better conferences. And so UTSA has really been on like a turbo track of progression. And that's just not something that is consistently done for like really any program in America. So I think people just need to keep their expectations in check, I guess.
It's like giving a screen to a baby, you know, like then they need that stimuli at all times. Like any type of stagnation is like the sky is falling. And it's like, well, it's like the meme with the, you know, when the dude's getting hung and he's like first time, you know, where it's like, this is how this works. Like, you're not going to be good every year as a G5 football team. Like it's hard for the P4 teams to like have that level of consistency. There's going to be some ups, there's going to be some downs. And when the roster turns over, you can't just reload.
Yeah. And winning 8 games is a huge achievement too. I mean, especially for a program with as limited of history as UTSA. But you see a lot of fans that are like, if it's not a 10-win season, it's a flop of a year. And that's crazy to me. Right. I mean, I would love to see them go win a championship every year, but it's really hard at this level to win and stack consistent seasons back to back. They're just a handful of programs, I think, that have a shot at getting to a bowl every single year guaranteed. And even then, they'll still have seasons. You know, I think of Boise 2 years ago, right? They barely made it to bowl. They had to fire a coach midseason to get there. So, it's tough sledding at this level. And I think the fans just expect consistent, super high level success.
So as we sit in preseason right now, who do you think come mid-year, come end of year is going to be this team's MVP and then the team's X factor?
Ooh. Owen McCown's pretty easy pick for MVP. I mean, they're going to go as far as he'll pick them.
Owen McCown, he's the MVP for sure.
Right. I think Amador is a pretty good pick too if we want to go away from McCowan because he's actually probably a better pick for X factor because we saw like once he got added to the depth chart last season, it just sparked the offense into gear that it had not been executing at all season long. I think just his like Swiss Army knife effect of being able to take the jet sweep, run the reverse, throw a pass because he went to state as a quarterback his senior year. He just brings a lot to that offense that you're not getting elsewhere. On the defensive side of the ball, you know, I would hope Shad Banks is the guy. I think there's a lot riding on his shoulders, which is probably unfair to him. X Factor, I'm going to go with Cam Cooper. I think that he's a guy that could really break out. I really like some of the plays he flashed in last year. He doesn't have like any one elite attribute, but he's a good all-around athlete, and he just kind of fits the mold of guys that UTSA has been able to develop into a good pass rusher.
All right, before we let you get out of here, what do you think this season's going to be? Like, what is your predictions on how this thing plays out for the Roadrunners?
Yeah, I think it was 7 to 8 win regular season. I think they'll be in the hunt to play for a conference championship game. I think the league is going to be really wide open this year. So I think even just getting to 8 wins, they could be in the hunt to play for the conference championship. I think they'll beat Texas State again, which is a huge barometer for this year. Having them at home is really key. But I'm just really concerned about the defense. I would love to be really pleasantly surprised, but there's just too many question marks for me to really predict anything more than that. It's a believe it when I see it scenario, and schemes can be really important for the defense. When you have a lot of guys that haven't played together, there's going to be miscommunication, and we've already seen that be an issue for UTSA with guys that have been playing in the program together for several years. So just super concerned about that, but that offense is going to carry them. They'll be fine. It'll be a good year, and I think it'll be just a fun season to watch Roadrunners.
Well, UTSA is a bit of a mystery box that will unlock on week 1, and you can follow Jared at Alamo Audible. Check him out on X, Jared UTSA. And Jared, thanks so much for joining us for this preview.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a blast.